Hey everybody, yeah, good to be with you. Welcome to week 2 of Where's the Love. Really, really good to see you. We are obviously going to change up the pace just a little bit today as we navigate this second part. And it's already been fun to be together. It's always fun to hear Davenport students get just kind of quietly, but obviously excited when we talk about free Qdoba. So there's a couple like just borderline amens over here going on. We love that. So it's just really fun to get to be with you. Eric and I are going to just share some things from our life today and share a little bit of a tool with you. And it's been a little bit since we've had a chance to kind of do it this way. I think it's been like a year or maybe over a year since we've had a chance. So welcome back, babe.
So obviously I'm his wife. He just said Erica didn't introduce me, but so John gets to get up here and like throw things at you guys, and that's kind of cool and fun. But he always throws like nasty stuff, like LaCroix. Okay.
Where are my LaCroix?
LaCroix.
Yes, LaCroix fans again. Come on, somebody.
LaCroix fans. Okay.
There it is. Yeah,
how about real fans? Dr. Pepper. Let me see it. Let me see it. Yes, we got some Dr. Pepper lovers. Okay, my turn to have a little fun and throw something. I'm not a very good thrower, so I'm going to go close to the front. Sarah, this is coming at you. Yes!
Oh! Don't open that.
Yeah.
Don't open that.
Don't open it yet.
Yeah, that's got a price to be paid. I haven't figured it out yet, but one week I'm going to throw coffee. Coffee lovers in the room? Yeah, how about I just straight up? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, one week we're going to figure out how to throw a hot cup of coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, well, if you've got ideas, let me know. So, yeah. Hey, really, again, glad you're here for week 2 of Where's the Love. We started last week in this series just trying to say, like, at the end of the day in our culture and our time where it feels like there's a lot of discussion about love, but maybe love is an ideal, not love is a reality. Where's the love? And we just landed on this question: what's the next loving thing to do? Like, what's the next loving thing to do? Like in your life and in your relationships, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, what's just the next loving thing to do? And it's a really significant question because it gets at the heart of relationships, right? It gets beyond the surface of relationships, and it gets at the heart of relationship. Not what is the next necessarily only kind thing to do. You can do a kind thing without love, yes? So what's the next loving thing to do? What's the next loving thing where we're adding value to people, where we're actually saying, I want what's best for another human being? What's the next loving thing to do? There's a lot of other things that we can choose, right? We can choose to try and be right. We can choose to try and get our way. We can choose to try and convince. We can choose to try and have a good argument. We can choose a really good cause or agenda. We can choose to try and be smart. We can choose to try and accomplish or accumulate. But if we do and we don't have love, like, what does it really all mean at the end? Like, what's it really all about? I mean, what good does it really do? Right? Like, what does it really amount to? And if we do all those things, if we're right about all the issues and we win all the arguments, but we don't have love, I mean, what does it even do for us, like, at the end of the day? What's it really about? There's a gentleman by the name Paul who in the first century wrote a lot of letters to people who were exploring Jesus, following Jesus, trying to figure out how to follow Jesus. He wrote letters to these people, and a lot of them are captured in the New Testament of your Bible. And we want to just look in at one of those today. If you've got a Bible, I want to invite you to turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and table contents is there for you if that's helpful for you. Maybe you're going to scroll on a phone, and we're going to go to a passage today that's really common and it's really well known. And if you're married today, somebody might have even have read this at your wedding. Like it even gets kind of called the love chapter. But Paul talks about this reality that what if we have all of these things and we don't have love? What if we have lots of good things but don't have love? What does it really amount to at the end? And if we really want to be more than that, then what is love? Like, what are the true characteristics of love? And while Paul writes it from this standpoint of, hey, here's how we live and love together, he's writing it to a group of people, right? Trying to worship Jesus and follow Jesus together. He's writing about how they love each other. We get this real big window into Jesus' love for us. We get this window into God who is love and the very nature of that love. So 1 Corinthians chapter 13, maybe found on a phone, maybe in a Bible, or you can follow along on a screen, and Eric is just going to read that for us. Let's dive into this thing together.
If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Another translation from the Passion Translation says it like this: love is large and incredibly patient. Love is gentle and consistently kind to all. It refuses to be jealous when blessing comes to someone else. Oh, ouch. Love does not brag about one's achievements nor inflate its own importance. Love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seek its own honor. Love is not easily irritated or quick to take offense. Love joyfully celebrates honesty and finds no delight in what is wrong. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing the best for others. Love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up.
It's this really striking picture. Do you hear it? Like, if I even have spiritual gifts, if I'm even really good at spiritual things, if I know a lot about God, if I could recite the Bible, if I could, right? But I don't have love, then I'm actually nothing. I'm just a loud noise. Right? And yet, it's that compared to love is large. It's so patient. It's so enduring. Right? It's so kind. It's so gentle. It's so persevering. Right? There's this dramatic contrast that Paul is making there, that we can have a lot of things that look and sound like love, but actually not be love, and just be really loud noises. And right, let's just have a candid conversation just for a second. That feels like a little bit of the drift of culture right now, right? And we're all vulnerable to it. We're all vulnerable to it. To have a lot of good, to know a lot of good, to have a lot of good causes, but not have love. And here's the thing. Like, even in our most prized and treasured relationships, it can feel like we lose love sometimes. Even in the relationships that mean the most to us, right? Our marriages, our parent-child relationship, our closest friendships, relationships between mentors and mentees, healthy relationships between bosses and employees. It can feel like sometimes in our most prized relationships, we lose this thing that Paul is actually talking about. We didn't want to, but something grows cold, or maybe it grows blah, or maybe something breaks. And when it happens, although we really value love, it can get hard to see a way forward. And you might actually be here today and think, man, we haven't talked about it, and I haven't told anybody about it, and I don't really know what to do with it. But in one of my most significant relationships, it's off, or it's not right, it's not good. It's 1 degree off and we can't pin it, or it's severely broken because of a crisis or a misunderstanding or a hurt. And I don't want to lose it, but I'm not sure what the next loving thing to do is when it's hard. I'm not sure what the next loving thing to do is when it's discouraging and overwhelming, and I'm just not sure what the next. It can be hard to know where do I move? What's the next thing? You might resonate a little bit in the show This Is Us, which any of you watch the show This Is Us? It's almost got like this borderline cult following, it feels like. Right? And there's this couple in there, Randall and Beth, who have had this great marriage, and there's kind of this season in the show where they hit a little bit of a rough patch, and maybe you'll identify with a little bit of where they are. Go ahead and take a look at this clip for a second. Look at Randall and Beth.
Hello?
Dad!
Hey, there's my Fab Four. Hey, Dage, we should probably hit the road soon if we're gonna make it to your debate tournament in Newark. Hi.
Hi. I have back-to-back beginners ballet classes, so Zoe and Kevin can come watch the girls while I'm gone.
Great.
Are you staying here tonight when you get back?
Oh, maybe. Just waiting for J1 to tell me tomorrow's schedule.
Hey, Dage, I'm gonna go get your backpack.
Okay.
Did you know Deja joined the debate team?
It's news to me. Yesterday was the first I'd heard of it.
Same.
Randall, the other night, I said some things that I
know.
didn't.
We both did. Do you think we can talk when Deja and I get back later? Figure out how we're gonna make our way through this?
Yeah. You remember a few months back when we finally did that escape room together?
Oh, that was a disaster. Deja and Tess hated it, and he got claustrophobic.
Yeah, but then right before all three girls went into full meltdown mode,
We found the door.
we found the door. I'm not seeing the door here, Randall.
Maybe right now you've got a relationship in your life where you want it to move forward, but you're not seeing the door. You're not seeing the door forward. It happens, right? It's part of relationships with other human. It happens where I want it to be different. I want it to be more. For the next few minutes, we're gonna talk about a way forward, some of the next loving thing to do inside of marriage. But if you're not married, hold on a second, right? If you're not married, what we're gonna talk about is really a way forward, the next loving thing to do, a way to find the door in any meaningful, significant relationship. We're just going to happen to put it in the context of marriage to talk to you about how we've been learning it, but and experiencing it. But because here's the deal. You might be here if you are married, and you may think, man, we've been married a long time, and it's okay. I one time dreamed that it would be more, or it's been great, but now we're in a season that's not great, and I want it to be more again. We're not falling off the rails. It's not going to fail. We're going to make it. But I wish it could be more. But I'm not finding the door to more. Maybe there's a way. Maybe there's really a door. Maybe you're here today and it's a level beyond that. And it is a little bit like, what are we going to do? Is this really going to work? How are we going to make it? And you're not just hoping for more. You're hoping to make it. Hoping to make it. And when you think about, can we make it? You may be thinking what Beth thought. I'm not finding the door. I'm not finding the door to how to make it. I'm not finding the door to move us forward. I'm not finding the door to figure out, how do I know how to live this whole 1 Corinthians 13. And so we're going to talk about it. And here's kind of Here's kind of the basis and the foundation of this, that'll frame everything else we talk about. Here's this underlying statement that has to be true if we're going to find the door. Okay, if we're going to find the door and we're going to make it, here's the statement that just we have to understand is fully true, right? Paul talked about all the different things of love, and one of the things he landed on at the end is that love is persevering, and then love doesn't fail. So here's the reality. Persevering love is not about falling in love. It's about living out love. Persevering love is not about falling in love. It's about living out love. Listen, it's kind of easy to fall in love with people, with ideas, with things, with groups, with teams, with tribes, right? But living out love, living out that patience, living out that understanding, living out that endurance, living out that hope, living out that celebration of somebody else's wins, living out that keeping no record of wrong, that's a different deal. Persevering love isn't about falling in love. It's about living out love. And so today, with that and that end of 1 Corinthians 13, that early part, that's what we want to talk about. And so we just want to share a tool with you today. And let me give you a little context of the tools. It was created by a guy named Rick Pierce, who's part of a counseling organization down south. It came to us through some friends who had been coached by somebody who knows Rick Pierce. And so it's kind of a roundabout way that we've got it. It's a new tool to us, to be really honest. But what we're finding is that we sit down and talk about the tool, we can see patterns in our own relationship where when we've made it and we've actually gotten through them, we've kind of been navigating through this funnel. It's called the relational funnel or the emotional funnel. What's been happening is we've been wandering through this. At times where we haven't made it quite as far or persevered as well as we would have liked to, there was a sticking point. There was or even an opt-out point where we short-circuited thing a little bit. And so we just want to walk through this tool a little bit. Again, we're just going to just kind of tell you how it plays for us. We'll explain the tool, then we'll kind of give you an example just from our life. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, listen, at the end of the day, there is a door to more. It's persevering love. There is a door to more. In your marriage, in your parent-child relationship, in your sibling relationship, in your closest friendships, there is a door to more. There is a door to more. And so we'll just kind of walk this thing out. So we're going to kind of give you the tool and the grid, and then we'll walk it out. Erica is going to kind of walk us through the first couple layers of this. I think your outline's blank today, so if you're artistic enough, I would never attempt to write this clearly. But if you're creative, just write it down and kind of keep track, and hopefully it'll be helpful to it for you. Walk us through the first couple.
Okay, so the first layer is our behaviors or our actions, events in our lives, things that happen to us. Or stuff that we do. That is the very first layer. The second layer, like John said, this is also called the emotional funnel. So the second layer is our reaction to the events that happen to us in our daily lives or things that we do. Most often, our response to something that does not go the way that we want it to go is usually anger and frustration. Anger is a secondary emotion, but it shows up first. And getting to underneath the layer of anger and what's really going on takes a lot of work and is really hard to do. I was interpreting for an anger management group one time, and there was all men. Okay, and I'll just say no more about that. But so the instructor was like, let's talk about feelings that we have when these kind of things happen, and it was a court-ordered anger management. So they were saying, this happens and I get so mad, and the instructor was like, okay, but what else do you feel? And somebody would say, I feel outraged. Okay, what else do you feel besides anger? I feel so mad. Okay, what else do you feel? And it went on and on for like 10 minutes. It was like every single word they could ever think of for anger. But they couldn't get below that anger to, I was really hurt. I was traumatized. I was offended. There's so many other things that are going on below the anger. And so that's actually the next layer. that John's going to share.
Yeah, it ticks me off that she used an example with all men. But what's below that, right, there's another layer. There's another set of emotions you got to process. Below that anger and that frustration, there's something else. There's some hurt, there's some sadness, there's grief, there's guilt, there's fear. There's a deeper processing of something that didn't go our way or an unmet expectation or, right? Just by show of hands, how many of you have ever been angry or frustrated? Right? Okay, we've all been there, right? Which means we've all kind of been the next one too, right? We got this hurt and this sadness, this grief and this guilt. And what happens is below that, there's some questions that are starting to emerge. When it doesn't go our way, what we're really starting to bump into when we experience the hurt, sadness, grief are questions like, am I valuable? Am I actually loved? Do I matter? Does anybody care? Okay, there's another layer of that. If we go a little further, it's getting a little closer to the root of what's really going on in all of that. Okay? And then below that one, what we're really trying to solve is to say, wait, somewhere down in there is a truth that I am valuable. Somewhere below those questions, there is a truth that I'm valuable and that I matter and that I'm not alone. But you see, inside of relationship or emotional conflict, that's really separated from the initial behavior. There's an enormous gap in that. Right? So a lot of times we'll try and fix the top one or we'll try and fix the second one, but we haven't really gone all the way to say, no, wait a second. What are the answers to the main questions that are launching all of this in me? And when we solve this, when we anchor in on this, what really happens is then we can live with some fullness and some joy, some contentment, some peace. This is where we're contagious. This is where people want to be around us. And listen, this is where we want to be around ourselves. Okay? When we get down here, we start solving, this is where we actually want to be around ourselves. Right? You don't have to raise your hand, but how many of us have just at times thought, man, I don't even want to be around me because I'm not able to sort everything out and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with this, okay? So there's this funnel, but here's the kick on the funnel. There's a green line in the funnel, and the green line runs right after that second layer. Do you see it in there? Because here's what happens. Most relationships, when they bump into a sticking point, when they bump into a challenge, again, we're going to talk about it in the context of marriage, but you can talk about it in any context, parent, child, friendship, right? We choose to stop. We choose to stop. Something doesn't go our way. There's a behavior, there's an event, there's a characteristic of events in our life that makes us mad. We get really frustrated. We're irritable, right? And we stop there. And what we try and do is we hope we can change the behavior in the event. We hope we can get mad enough to change the behavior of the event. But the anger doesn't actually lead to any change. What we really want to do is we want to go below the green line. The way towards health and restoration and healing is to get below the green line. But there are enormous barriers to that. The top two barriers are time and energy. It takes time to go below the green man. Look, how many of we just know it doesn't take any time at all to be angry. It's just right to, yep, I'm mad now. Yep. That takes no time, right? It uses energy, but we very rarely have to decide to give energy to our anger, right? So we got to go below, but time and energy are the two greatest barriers. Now, let me also say this, and then we'll just kind of walk out an example from our own life where we've had to process through this a little bit. And here's the thing. A lot of times what we've said is that, look, things aren't going our way. We don't like the marriage. We're unhappy or we're arguing or we're distant or whatever it is. Things aren't working or I was hurt or I was betrayed and I'm really mad. But I don't want to take the time or the energy to go below the green line. Or right? I'm going to be strong and I'm going to carry this. I'm going to be strong enough to make it. We're not really going to talk about it. I'm just going to deal with it. And by dealing with it, I'm going to show my strength. Here's the actual truth. To decide to stay above the green line is actually weakness. To get below the green line, that's strength. Strong people go below the line. Can I say it a little? I'm going to do it. Let me say it a little more bold. I was going to ask for permission. I don't know why, but okay. But here's the real truth, right? to know you are above the green line and need to go below the green line, like to know that's there, and after today we don't have any excuses, to know that and to stay above the green line is actually cowardly. Below the line is courageous. That's where change actually happens. That's where change actually happens. So some of us are more wired to talk about our feelings. Some of us are more wired to talk about our hurts and our sadness and our griefs and wrestle with those questions. But all of us get the choice to say, I'm going to courageously go below the green line. So we're just, with all of that kind of framework in mind, like this is persevering love, right? To go below the green line is persevering love. It's not about trying to figure out how can we fall in love again. It's about how can we live out love. Well, to really live it out, we're going to have to get below that green line and talk about the real issues, no matter how long we've been married. So you've been married 7 months, you're engaged, you're thinking about getting married, or you've been married 50 years, right? We all can have issues that pop up and we get caught in the top. Intimacy is below the line. Depth of relationship is below, the best is below. Okay, the best is below. The best is below. And so we just want to give you an example from our own marriage, and it's actually a fairly recent one. So we'll just give you one that we've kind of had to work through, and probably on some layers are still navigating through it just a little bit. We'll just play one of these out for you. If somehow we have time at the end, we'll give you one more, but we'll just talk through one and let you see a little bit of how this thing develops. So Erica, tell them about the season, and let's walk it out a little bit.
Yeah, and now that we have this tool, we'll just be talking. I'll be like, are we going below the green line? What kind of conversation is this? Is this a below the green line conversation? Because I need to know.
I get hard of hearing. No, I'm just kidding. No, you got to stay. You got to stay in the game, right? The courage is blowing.
Right. Yeah, so trying to come up with a situation, just one that we wanted to share was pretty hard, because if you've been married for 23 years like we have a lot of situations we could have talked through this about, but we decided to choose one that that we feel like a lot of marriages and friendships even and dating relationships probably experience at some time. And that is like a feeling of distance from each other, like a disconnect from each other. And so during that season, in the very first part of the funnel, that's what we were feeling towards each other, was a disconnect. It felt like our schedule was causing us to be distant from each other. There was this feeling of intimacy distance, and so that's the situation that we're gonna share about.
Yeah, and so like Erica, she felt like, and she would have said we were disconnected, like around our events and our actions, that's kind of where we were. And what I would have said is, like when we talked about it, I would have said, man, it's because of chaos. Like we even viewed the events differently. I felt like life was getting too chaotic, and that was creating some of this distant, and we had different vocabulary for it. So we had to sit down and talk it through, because like she would talk about distance and those kind of things, and I would talk about, man, I'm kind of flat. Like, I just feel like our relationship's just flat. And this was late last year and into early 2019. And so we were just kind of in this stretch, and we hadn't really been in it in this way before. We'd had times of distance, but this felt new and different. It felt more vulnerable. It felt like there was more at stake. And so in all of this chaos, like if it felt for me like there was chaos in the top, like our lives were a little out of control, if you went down to the next layer, like in that anger and frustration level, what I was getting into is I was getting really irritable. I don't like chaos. And I don't like chaos, especially if I think I'm contributing to it. Right? So I'm getting irritable, and I'm getting irritable with her, and because I'm like, you're the one that's blowing up these events, you're the one that's this, or so now there's this growing tension, which then, for me, my mode is just to say, well, look then, I don't want to live angry, so I'll just choose, out of my anger, I'll choose numb. I'll just choose numb. Because I don't want to live angry, so I'll just choose numb. But while I'm getting kind of irritated and numb and all that, Eric is having a connected but different set of emotions in that second bar there.
So if he's feeling frustration, irritation, irritability, and I'm feeling distant, then you feel even more distant, because who wants to be close to a porcupine, right? So it's like, okay,
Truth.
you're irritated with me, but I think it's with me, but it's really with the chaotic schedule, because we haven't talked about it. And so then I create even more distance and more disconnect, because I feel like it's my fault. He's mad at me. He's frustrated with me. And who wants that? So then I create even more distance. And then to kind of protect myself, I have this feeling of, well, who cares? Or blah. This is just, it's how it's going to be. It's just going to be that way, and we'll just let it go because I don't want to get hurt. And then we, have that wall. So then if you go below the green line and really express how you're feeling, I, during that time, was feeling rejected, because I thought that his frustration and irritability was towards me, and I was feeling hurt. And the biggest thing I think I was feeling was fear, because I was like, really? Is this what marriage is all about? If this is how our marriage is going to be for the rest of our lives, then that stinks. I don't want to live like that. So there's that fear also that's underlying.
Yeah, and so I got the same fear, right? And we've always said, like, we've never believed that lie that marriage has to get boring. Like, I think that's junk. Right? I think that's junk. I think if you're growing people and you have a growing relationship, right? But all of a sudden, do you see how quickly like despair can pop up? Like one season, short window, and boom, there's like that fear and oh no, right? And so we're starting to wrestle with below the green line things, but we're not having any conversations about it. Right? And I'm feeling guilty because I don't like chaos. I'm fine with chaos that I can't control or like that was about something else. But if I feel like I contributed to it somehow, I'll feel guilty. I just kind of can beat myself up over that. And I was wrestling with that. Where have I gone wrong? Where have I let us go wrong as a family? Where did I not see it coming? Why didn't I help us have conversations sooner? So then I've got all of that guilt and that fear about, well, what if we do have a conversation? What's it really going to be like? And I don't even really know what to say because I don't know what the conversation is. And that fear of, are we somehow, I never envisioned us being here. Are we somehow stuck? Are we somehow stuck? And it can become a little bit all-consuming in that. And then what if you don't have an outlet? So then if you go one level further, like I've got this guilt, we both got this fear and this hurt. The next thing down is you have to say, okay, what's the big question? What's the really big question? And my question was, does anyone actually care? Because when you start to get that disconnect and that distance, do you know what I'm really thinking? Does she even care? Right, that's what I'm thinking. She's thinking I'm a porcupine, and I'm thinking she's cold-hearted. Right? It's not good, right? I mean, do you see the slippery slope? You see the slippery slope in that? I'm like, does anybody care? But what I'm really asking is, does she care? And then what I've got to start asking is, do I care enough? Do I care enough to not just think below the green line, but go below the green line, to actually talk, to have enough courage to go for the best, which is below? So you're starting to wrestle with this question. But she's got a different question. That's part of the challenge and why you have to actually have a conversation about it. I can't answer my question for her. Right? I've got to figure out what we've got to have a conversation so we can learn what each other's questions are. So your question wasn't necessarily just that.
Yeah, so for me, it was more, does he still desire to be with me? Does he think that I'm beautiful? Does he want to spend time with me? It was more at the core of who I am as a wife, and am I valuable to him? And really, like John said, it's so courageous to ask those questions because a lot of times you're scared of the answer. But this is your chance as a spouse to validate those feelings that your spouse has. And to say, you're right, I get it, I understand. I do think you're desirable. I do think you're beautiful. I do care. And that's your chance to validate. So that goes into the next level. I am valuable. I do matter. I am lovable. Yes, I do care. So then he starts to know someone does care. We're in this together. And that's when you get to validate.
Yeah, and it's so huge because somewhere along the line, what happens when relationships start to drift is you subconsciously at first we start to think we're on opposite sides, right? We're not on the same team here, or I'm the only one that's experiencing this. My spouse or my child or my parent, they're not experiencing this, right? And so, which then just leaves all the questions on the table. And so, to get some courage, you got to slide down in there. So for me, part of the deal was, in that next layer was, I had to come back to this really simple truth and say, now wait a second, I'm already loved. I'm already loved. Even if the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst happened, and she didn't care, I'm already loved. Right? I'm already loved. And it starts to kind of settle this more core belief in this core value, which gives some strength as we try and navigate all the other pieces. I'm already loved. And then for me, in that scenario, that was the one I needed. That was the one anchoring kind of truth I needed to come back to a little bit so that we could push back up the ladder a little bit. But you had multiples. It wasn't just I'm loved. You had some other vocab that you needed in that. The whole I'm prized.
I'm prized, I'm desired, I'm loved. Yep. And maybe you don't get those words from your spouse. Like John said, you have to trust that that's what God says about you. And that's where we can then go to the bottom of the funnel where we can live in, and for me, in this situation, I could live in contentment and acceptance. And contentment in knowing that I am loved by God, and therefore I can live this out with loving John.
Yeah, and for me, it was this peace thing at the end, the peace that kind of settles the soul and everything. Because here's the question. Here's what you kind of get to at the end, is this reality that while we need to navigate these layers and these questions as husbands and wives and as parents and kids and siblings and all those kind of things, the person we're having them with is not the ultimate answer. Like Erica's not the ultimate answer to, does anybody care? She's not the ultimate. She's an expression of God's answer to that. She's not the ultimate answer. And listen, if you're in a stage where you're thinking about getting married, can I just say, you're not marrying the answer. You're not marrying the answer. Please don't think you're marrying the answer. You're actually marrying part of the problem and part of the solution. But you're not marrying the ultimate answer. Right? And so when you navigate through this, what you start to learn, what we start to and sometimes just be reminded of is, oh, wait a minute. I'm kind of wrestling this through, and so I'm being reminded that Erica isn't the ultimate basis of am I loved. She's an expression of God's love to me. I'm an expression of God's love to her, but I'm not her ultimate source of love. Okay, so here's what happens for us in this. I still remember where we were. I still remember late in December last year, we had some mentors in from out of town, and we had the staff over to our house, and these mentors had shared with us, and everybody was kind of hanging out, and I'd kind of snuck off and talked to this guy who'd invested so much into our lives, and I just described to him the season we were in. It's the first time I'd said it out loud. Like, it was the first time, and really without this vocabulary, he's probably never even seen this funnel, he's really telling me, you got to get through that. You got to go past that anger and that blah. You got to go past what feels very flat and neutral to you. And somewhere in there, you got to have a conversation. And so I remember the first conversation we had that kind of broke the ice on this, that pushed us through the glean round. We're sitting in our kitchen, Erica's on one side of the bar, and I'm standing on the other side of the bar. And I can't even remember what I said or what I said, but I still remember her saying, I just feel distant. I feel like we're distant. And in that moment, you know what the greatest gift in the moment was? oh, it's not just me. How about that? Because if you only process below the green line by yourself, you can still feel like you're completely alone. And relationships are always multiple people, right? And listen, one conversation didn't fix it. I remember we were on a date not too long after that at a restaurant. I still remember us, it had kind of pushed into spring, and we're still navigating through, and we're sitting outside of this restaurant, and we're still talking through the distance and the why and the what are we really feeling, and what are we really doing with it, and what does this really mean? Because you gotta follow them. See the little arrows going down the right-hand side? You gotta navigate the stages. Can I tell you what it's tempting to do in church environments? What it's tempting to do in church environments is take the bottom one or two and try and run all the way up to the top. Let me grab a hold of a promise about who I am, which is a really good thing, right? In the middle and towards the bottom there, we're really talking about the gospel. Jesus is your salvation. He is your hope. He is your, right? But it gets tempting to grab a hold of, oh, that's it. I am loved. I am valuable. All of that's true. But the temptation is then to sprint up to the top and say, because I'm loved and valuable, all my circumstances are going to be different. That doesn't work. That's not even how God designed it. Okay, listen. What God said is, look, no, I don't want to just give you a promise so you can change all your circumstances. I want to give you a promise so you can go on a journey in which I change your heart. I want to take you up the left side. I want to help you actually heal. I want to help you change. Look, I could have said, I am valuable, and Erica could have said, I am prized, and we could have looked for all of our circumstances to change and all those little feelings to go away. It's not how Jesus designed it. Because Jesus is more about changing the heart and revealing his nature and growing his likeness in us than he is just changing the top-level circumstances. And so there's this walking all the way up with this ladder. Say, this is how the funnel actually works. Here's the good news. Listen, here's the good news. Aren't you at the end of the day glad that even in our relational tension, we have a Jesus whose primary aim is to change our heart, not just our circumstances? So that the next time similar circumstances emerge, we've got a new heart through which to navigate them and view them. If he only changes the circumstances, listen, half the reason we in most of our marriages keep running into the same issues over and over and over again is because we're just trying to change circumstances. We're not doing anything to allow Jesus to change the us who's actually contributing to the circumstances. It doesn't matter how long you've been married. Doesn't matter if you are in kind of the falling in love stage right now. Man, what a beautiful season. Enjoy it. Soak it up. Live that. But somewhere, persevering love isn't just about falling in love. It's about living out love. It's about pushing through and going below the green line. Being brave enough to put yourself in a position to experience the best. If you just quickly let the relationships of your life, the significant relationships of your life run through your head, if you're married, where's your marriage? Are you stuck anywhere in any of those? Is there an issue that's just lingering? Is there an issue you've gotten comfortable living in the top two? And maybe 20 years ago you wish you could have navigated, and now it's so normal, and you've given up hope on that ever-changing? But maybe today would be a day to say, you know what? We're going to go through the green line. We're going to go through it. We're going to have persevering love on this. What's the issue that's fresh right now that needs to be talked about? If it's not a marriage, what's the relationship? What in your dating relationship, you may be even thinking about getting married, and you're trying to think, can I live with one or two of those top shelf things? But maybe before you even get married, you need to say, you know what? I'm not just going to choose to live with those. I'm going to push below the green line to see if we can actually make some headway on this. I'm going to push further to see what's below here. Because the best is actually below. Is there any place where you just feel like, man, I'm not finding the door here. I'm not finding the door. I'm not finding the door. If you're not finding the door, if it's looking really hard and just feels a little overwhelming or challenging. Say, what's the next thing? What next? What would I actually do next? There's two things, and they're connected. Here's the first one. Choose hope. Choose hope. Choose hope. That whole love chapter is this window into God's love for us and how we could love other people. And love always hopes. Listen, love always hopes. Love always, you've never taken a breath in which Jesus wasn't hoping for you. And then just ask, can we have the next right conversation? Can we have the next right conversation? Can we have the next right conversation? No matter how big or small the issue seems, can we just have the next right conversation? No matter how petty or substantial it seems, can we just have the next right conversation? No matter how bleak or bright it seems, can we just have the next right conversation? Maybe there's even some things that you think you've navigated, but it's time to just go back and say, look, can we walk this out to make sure we've really healed up here? Can we just re-explore this? And again, maybe it's in your marriage, but maybe it's in a relationship with your kid. Maybe it's in a relationship with a sibling or a really close friend. Just choose hope and then have the next right conversation. And here's what I want to say to you. Whenever we kind of navigate this and we start talking about, in this case, go below the green line, and we're going to start talking about hurt and disappointment and setback and loss and grief and all of those kind of things, that's a lot. It is. And you don't have to, and oftentimes you shouldn't try and walk it all by yourself. I can't encourage you enough to go to counseling. I just can't encourage you enough. Find a counselor. On our resources page on our website, there's some counselors, there's some organizations that have multiple counselors that are there. I just encourage you to go. Maybe the first time you got to go by yourself and try and sort it out. Maybe, though, you kind of navigate it together right away. I'm kind of caught in my life in some things, and not in our marriage relationship, but some other dynamics where I'm caught in that anger level right now. Well, 2 weeks ago, I was with my counselor saying, man, I got to do something about this. I need your help. Like, how am I going to hear Jesus in the middle of this? Like, just go. Just go. Take advantage of that. Because listen, if persevering love is not about falling in love, but it's about living out love, love lived out gets all the help it possibly can. Love lived out gets all the help it possibly can. If you're a spouse and your spouse wants to go to counseling and you don't want to go, just go. Just go. Just go. That's not for me. Just go. Just go. You'll get points for just going. You may feel like a porcupine to them right now, okay? You just go. Just go. Just engage. Because persevering love gets all the help it can get. Choose hope and have the next right conversation. Choose hope, have the next right conversation in order to get below the green line and walk this thing out. Erica, why don't you pray for us?
Before I pray, real quick, ladies.
Nope. No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, just kidding.
With the have the next right conversation, your man cannot read your mind, okay? So you have got to share how you feel. Listen, when we were young married, I was like, well, if I'm angry enough, I'm frustrated enough, I'm irritable enough, he'll ask me, what's wrong? What's up? Where? Oh, babe. No, it doesn't happen that way. He just gets angry and frustrated because I'm angry and frustrated, and he doesn't know why, and he thinks it's because of this, and it's really because of that. He cannot read your mind, so tell them how you feel, okay? And guys, it goes for you too. We can't read your minds either, even though we are super women.
Truth came out eventually. Yeah, no. Yeah.
All right, let's pray. God, you are so, so good to us. We are so thankful that we have a God who loved in the way that you loved by sending your son to die on the cross for us, to die for our sins that we have committed, But we can't do anything about it. Only you could do it. Only you could take that cross and could die for us. And God, because of your love, because of your 1 Corinthians 13 love for us, that is patient and kind and so, so great, you, without thinking about it in a second chance, you just sent your son. And I thank you so much for that. And God, I just thank you that you give us your word to guide us, to guide our path, to show us the way to you, to show us the way to have a loving relationship with those that you have put us here on the earth together with. I thank you that you guide us, that you help us, even when times are hurtful, when our heart is hurting and we're grieving and we're fearful. God, you give us the courage to go below the green line. And I thank you so much, God, that you are strong in our weaknesses. When we are weak, you are strong. And we need you, God. We need that strength in our lives. God, use our weaknesses for your glory, to bring you fame, and to increase your kingdom, God. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.